Engineer versus Designer is brought to you by the Mojo 3D printer. Now you can have 3D printing right at your desktop at a remarkably low cost. With the magic of Mojo, there's really no limit to your creativity. See it at mojo3dprinting.com.
Josh, if engineering were a 5-kiloton zombie bomb, you would be the blast radius that strips the paint off the brain-covered walls.
Oh, zombie blasting fun. Welcome to Engineer vs. Designer.
The podcast
for engineers,
designers,
and people who can mod a game console blindfolded
on the back of a bike
while humming the Zelda theme song. My name is Josh.
And my name is Adam. Each week we bring you the freshest product design juice squeezed straight from the lobes of our esteemed guests. This week we'll be speaking with internet celebrity and king of all modders, Ben Heckendorn.
Yes.
Known to many of you as Ben Heck. His video game console hacks have been featured in everything from Wired
to Popular Science
and Maxim
to Engadget.
Nothing like memories of playing my Atari and original NES.
Yes, duck hunting.
So Ben, welcome to the show. Our first question is, if you could embed any video game controller into your forehead, which controller would you choose?
Controller or console?
Controller, yeah.
Controller,
come on, Adam.
Yeah.
Into my forehead?
Yeah.
Now, is this assuming that I would want to do that?
Yes. Who wouldn't?
Yes, you do. Yeah, you have to embed one of them.
That's a good question. Well, probably something small then, so it wouldn't take up much space. Perhaps a Nintendo controller, because all you would need is one shift register. Yeah. They had that old thing years ago, the Atari Mind Link, where it
that's true
by the muscles on your eyelids. So that your eyebrows. So that wasn't too far off.
I thought for sure you would say the Neo Geo controller. So
great choice, Ben.
So awesome.
Inspiring. Speaking of embedding electronics into our craniums, Josh, peel back our forehead skins and slap our brain cage with the lobotomy of knowledge.
Yeah, this week, Engineer vs. Designer is brought to you by the Mojo 3D printer, a world-class professional 3D printer for only $185 a month. What? To find out how you can give your big idea a little mojo, visit mojo3dprinting.com. Okay, today we're speaking with our special guest, bad guy clobberer, device mega modder, Ben Heck. Ben, welcome again. Before we get into the emotional side of eating beef jerky and playing with electronics all day, we want to get a quick rundown on modding video game consoles from you. You've modded over, I don't know how many. I think I counted like 35 or 40 consoles. How many have you done?
Well, I've modded almost every console that's come out, and there's some that I've made multiple versions of, such as the Atari 2600.
Wow, amazing.
It's probably a shorter list, not to sound vain, but probably a shorter list would be consoles I haven't done, such as the Dreamcast or GameCube.
Oh, yeah. Who would want to? So why do you do it, and will I ever be able to mod my coffee maker into a coffee-pumping face mask?
Coffee-pumping face mask?
Yes.
Like in that Batman movie where he's got the mask on for whatever reason, and
pretty much.
Slurping coffee all day?
Yeah.
Yeah, they kind of leave that out of the plot of the movie, but that's actually...
that way. Well, it's either that or like intravenous caffeine, I suppose. I forgot what the question was. It was something about how I got started with modding game consoles.
Well, yeah. Why bother modding it? Why don't you just play it the way it is?
Well, I'll preface this by saying I haven't really done as much as that as I used to. Lately, I'm more into doing latency and testing controllers for the video game industry. But I can talk about why I started doing it in the past.
Cool.
I don't know. I think it started with the Atari 2600. I just thought it would be interesting to try to hack it down and see if it could be made into a portable form. And that one succeeded, so then I set my sights on other consoles. And, there's not necessarily a terrible amount of use to it, but people really liked it, and that's what matters. And then over the years, I just made more and more models and kept selling them and, advanced my art from there. And then I got into, like, the late 2000s or whatever.
Right.
And started making, like an Xbox stuff, PlayStation. I think I even did a Wii at one point.
That's incredible. I mean, so we're involved in designing product from scratch. I've even done some work with video game consoles and such, and there's kind of a process involved in that, right? Even for the most diverse and different products, there's a pretty set process, step by step, that most of us follow in order to design a product. Does that apply to modding as well? Do you have a process? Is there a recipe, or do you just kind of go for it, whatever comes to your head?
Oh, there's a process. You take it down to the base components, and then you identify anything that's redundant or not relevant to what it is you're trying to do with it. Then you scan everything into the computer so you know all the volumes of everything. And then once you have basically the absolute minimum size, but of course, any enclosure is only as small as its biggest part. Once you have everything down to the minimum size, then you figure out how you can make it look cool from there. Because obviously you can't work magic with you're not designing your own hardware, so you have to work with what you have.
That is incredible. This isn't just your garage modding, hack and slash modding. You're like re-engineering this machine.
Well, not re-engineering the low-level stuff, but you're definitely rebuilding everything around it. It's the industrial design certainly. You still have the core guts, so I'm not going in there and swapping out the CPU with some other compatible CPU, but definitely rebuilding everything around it. And I've been especially proud of the 1980s computer mods I've done. I did a Commodore 64 laptop using original hardware, as well as Atari 800 and Apple IIgs.
Wow.
So in Josh's man cave, he actually sleeps on a nest of wadded up old game consoles
Keeps
and computers and components and stuff. And he's actually going to bring that over to your house one day in trash bags and,
good. Just what I need, more consoles.
I hope that's okay with you.
I tell you what, I'm going to buy that portable Neo Geo that's going on sale in December. It's pretty cool. I will buy that day one. I don't care how much it costs.
All of them. We must.
This week, Engineer vs. Designer is brought to you by the Printastic Mojo 3D printer, a world-class professional 3D printer for only $185 a month. To find out how you can give your big idea a little mojo, be sure to head over and visit mojo3dprinting.com. So Ben, now you're somebody who can take an idea and turn it into a reality. That's what we like about you. And this is a segment where we talk about an idea and the possibilities of that becoming a reality.
Yeah, so for instance, Adam has gorgeous, curly, golden locks.
I do.
He does, however, need to tame that mop with a fair amount of product.
Yep.
I use massive amounts of hair gel.
Tons.
Yeah, you might want to buy stock in pomade, I tell you. Our question to you, though, could you mod a console so that it applies gel automatically to Adam's hair when he shoots, say, 50 zombies, rescues the princess?
Well, I had to say I've never had that suggestion before, so kudos to your originality. Well, I suppose if you're going to do it, you would have to make it so your video game could have some sort of trigger event where it could say, hey, such event just occurred, in which case it would interface with external hardware, which would do the gel pumping or whatever it is exactly you're thinking about.
Well, so I think Ben's right, and it does bring up a larger discussion about making products more open, more accessible, and possibly more multifunctional, maybe not to this particular extent. But do you think that, well, first of all, would you say that gaming consoles should they be more open for this kind of thing? Or is this always going to be the realm of geeks who want to take things a little too far?
Well, I guess there's two schools of thought. Is like, should they be more open and will they be more open? Of course, they won't be more open. It'd be nice if they were. I mean, part of the problem with hacking is, everything gets down to like the very small level surface mount, and it's almost beyond, human solderable ability. Of course, there's the Ouya, the Android game console that was on Kickstarter, and that is meant to be open. So that that could hopefully fill that niche, and I guess that's what they're trying to do with it. As far as the new game consoles, they're probably just going to get more locked down than ever. And I'm always annoyed when people say, "Oh, this generation's got a lot of life left to it, and we don't need new consoles yet." Which is, of course, horse crap. I mean, we should have had them 2 years ago. And then those same people, complain that they want discs, and the longer it takes to get a new console, the better chance it's going to be download only. It'll happen someday. I don't know when.
So is that why you went more towards other devices? Like one of your projects that you recently worked on is the portable 3D printer. How did that project come about? And can you tell us a little bit about the fun parts and some of the challenges in it?
Okay, so 3D printer. So last year, I think it was May 2011, on my show, I made a 3D printer, and we did it as a show episode. It was also the first time I ever tried to build one. I was familiar with them, but I'd never tried to build one before. And that one was supposed to be portable. We didn't quite get it there. About a year later, Maker Faire was coming up, Maker Faire San Mateo, and I was like, I want revenge. So I had like 4 weeks in which to do this, and I did it in about 2.5, and I'm not exactly sure how I even managed that. But yeah, basically the idea was to make something that folds up into a case, and I actually carried it on the airplane with me. It fit in the overhead bin.
Nice.
Wow.
And it was not questioned by the TSA in either Madison or San Francisco. So sleep soundly
No way.
tonight.
Wow. That is
Yep.
the most shocking part of this story, frankly.
Yeah, they didn't even use those
It
Stride
went
X
right through the
pads on
scanner?
it,
They
you know?
stopped
Seriously.
me for my calipers.
They stopped me
Oh,
for
yeah,
my
for
microphone.
I've got stopped for calipers before, yeah. It's all completely random.
Well, stay tuned
Oh,
because
goodness.
next week we're going to discuss Josh's autonomous earwax vacuum.
Oh, yeah.
idea. We'll be right back. Okay, welcome back, EVD listeners. Today we have the great pleasure of speaking with the man on the machine modding mission. His site is benheck.com, where you can watch the Ben Heck Show, also on revision3.com. His name, as you've probably guessed, is Ben Heck.
We wanted to have Ben on the show because he makes amazing stuff using other stuff.
Welcome, Ben.
Yeah, that's
First,
true.
we've already been discussing this a little bit, but video games. How do we get from Atari to N64 to PlayStation 3 and now seems to be back to Atari again? Why is that?
Well, I would say actually what's hot right now is probably Nintendo or Super Nintendo. Atari, I think, got a little bit too old again. But
Yeah.
it's cyclical, you know.
only-
As usual, I'm behind the curve. Yeah.
Well, you see it a lot in the media. You know, there's this whole rage now of making 8-bit games or whatever. You see it on Newgrounds or on the Xbox or that Scott Pilgrim versus the World game that came out a couple years ago. And, you know, if you've got guys, you know, my age basically, and you're trying to give them a nostalgic hit from the past, so to speak, and by putting those pixels on the screen, everything all blocky, they're like, oh, that reminds me of the games when I was like 12 years old. It takes them back.
Right.
It's the same reason they release a stupid Smurf movie, and they know that people my age will take their kids to it because we remember it as kids. Doesn't even have to be
Did
good.
you call your
Is that all it is, or does it have to do with the fact that the technology is simpler and easier to mod? I mean, does that not have anything to do
Well,
with it?
I will say this. Okay, you see in indie games a lot. You see everything's going into like pixel graphics and old school.
Yeah.
That's definitely all the rage now, and I think the reason things are going in that direction is because the art assets are just so much easier to do in that way, and you basically, you save yourself a lot of art time, and you're like, oh, look, they did it this way on purpose, and yes, that's true, but it also makes it easier. I mean, a indie studio is not going to sit there and render 50,000 polygon models, but they can do a 8-bit sprite of some guy punching somebody. That's easy. So I don't think it's necessarily that people are into the hardware, but the nostalgia factor of those kind of pixely games is attractive to people, and for the developers, especially the indie developers, it's just much easier from an art standpoint.
Right.
Now, you called yourself old. I take offense because I'm actually the same age as you. I think we were both born in 1975.
Yep, I was born in 75.
So I'm wondering, we grew up in the same time
it's not that you
period through all
feel
this.
old. There's just so many more people younger than you.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm sorry, go on.
That's true. So what is your background, and where did you get interested in all this, and what inspired the making?
That's a good question. Well, I had an erector set when I was a kid, and so you obviously old enough to remember what that was. Then I don't know. When I was about 10, I got into electronics and wiring up all the junk I could find, and I didn't have much solder because solder's expensive and we didn't have much money. But now I'm making up for that. I'm collecting a lifetime supply of lead solder. But I think I got my first computer when I was 11.
Breathe it in.
Oh, yeah. Probably from my cold, dead hands after I died of lead poisoning from the solder. Oh, well. Anyway, I got into programming when I was 11, and I wish I would have pursued it because I think I'd be better off right now if I hadn't, gone through my teenage years wanting to make indie films, which probably was a complete waste of time. Oh, wait, it wasn't a complete waste of time, but still. So then when I was older, I was a graphic artist. And I thought back to those old days of all the old game consoles and, when I used to solder things. And at this point, it'd probably been, 14 years since I'd soldered anything. And I thought, it'd be cool to do a project like that again. Yeah, I was into that kind of electronic stuff up until I was about 13. And then I didn't even basically touch it until I was 24. So yeah, there's a big. I'm sad because, well, not sad, but 11 years of progress I missed out on. So I'd probably be much further along now.
I think you ended up on top anyway. I mean, we've established not only that you're an amazing hacker and other things as well, but you're also something of an internet celebrity. So how did that come about? And importantly, we need to know, how do you keep the paparazzi off your back? Because Josh and I are struggling with that right now.
The paparazzi.
Need some tips.
Well, when was the first? Oh yeah, it was on one of GameSpy's sites, Classic Gaming. I think I just responded to an article, and I had my GeoCities site, which had my first Atari mod on it.
GeoCities.
Yep,
man,
I had
you're
GeoCities.
taking
This
me
is the year 2000.
Fantastic.
And someone saw that, and they're like, "Wow!" And then I just started getting all this interest about the Atari mods, and I had no idea at that time that anyone even cared about that stuff. So it kind of opened up my mind to this whole retro gaming thing. Yeah, as far as paparazzis, that doesn't really happen. It also doesn't get you laid because all the conventions are just filled with men. But it's fun because you definitely make a lot of contacts, and it's good to network, and you can meet a lot of talented people, and it's cool to. I like when I can work on, latency stuff, and make tools for game companies to, improve the games that they make, and so it's kind of cool. I like that part of it.
Cool. The first time I heard of you, I was looking for a case mod on my original Xbox. I saw the Xbox laptop mod, and then being left-handed, my other fave is the single-handed Xbox 360 controller. What is your favorite project to date?
Oh, that's tough. Well, if it was anything I've ever done, it was my Bill Paxton pinball machine. Definitely.
Oh, Bill Paxton pinball machine.
Yep, I made an entire pinball machine from scratch based off Bill Paxton and his amazing series of films.
Okay, so that's
Very
a good
cool.
segue. I mean, as if you couldn't get any cooler, you're also, as we mentioned, an indie filmmaker, and you write, direct, and star in most of your films. You've covered robots, romance, horror, and...
yes, I appreciate the visuals of a giant possum woman that can stab its tail through a man's skull.
Oh,
Beautiful.
totally. Oh, so
I love the way you captured it.
You guys have seen that stuff. Oh, boy. See, people you don't usually ask about that.
Yeah,
what attracts
my
you
kid
to
walked in on when that possum was attacking, so had to turn it off.
So Ben, what attracts you to the giant man's head stabbing possum genre of filmmaking?
I'll start off by saying that we are going to make a third one in 2021.
Oh,
for some reason we decided to wait 13 years.
Possum Child?
No, it's going to be
Child,
it's going to be Possumus Men. The government's going to clone a bunch of them, so it'll be basically like aliens. So they'll become easier to kill in the sequel, just like aliens.
You heard it here first, folks.
Oh yeah. Well, we've done movies in the past, and it's I like to tell people that I used to have a hobby of independent filmmaking, but then I picked up a cheaper one that was better for me, like drug use. But, I mean, it's a really, really, really difficult thing to do, making films. It's far worse than anything else I've ever done as a project. I mean, building Xbox laptops, or even pinball machines, is like a walk in the park to trying to make a goddamn movie. So when we did Possumus Woman, because this is like years after I've done anything else. One of the reasons we did it because we just gotten the new solid state Panasonic P2 camera, which is it's out of date now, but back then it was completely badass. It's like, wow, we can shoot HD at 24 frames a second,
right?
And we're like, oh, let's make our stupid possum sequel. The reason we went with that theme is because if you're like in a flyover state and you have to deal with all non-actors, it's much easier to get people to do something that is silly or dumb. If you try to make them act serious, it doesn't work at all. Unless you have people that are really good actors, but that's not the case. But if they show up and you're like, okay, just say this generally and then do this, and then a possum bites your head off. It's pretty easy for people. So it's less serious, so it's easy to ease people into it. I mean, we have this joke that the worst byproduct of being my friend is that you eventually end up in one of my movies. So
You'll be in the movie. All right, you do so many things, man. What's the favorite part of all of it?
That's a kind of a double-edged question, because basically anything you do enough of, you get sick of. Right now, I'm completely burned out on pinball, although I have to keep going. I have to admit, I really like making movies. I wish I could transition that into something that could actually make money. And granted, that was eventually useful when I did the Ben Heck show, which, I do get paid for, but I still kind of miss it. There's just something about the storytelling that I miss. It would be a nice break. I mean, that used to be my hobby back when I was a graphic artist. So, other stuff that I really like, I don't know. I really like coming up with clever solutions for problems and whatnot. Like I think right now on the show we're working on you have your RFID tag in your wallet and you back your butt up to the door, and if you're holding groceries, and then you hit the door and the door opens for you, so it's hands free.
Nice.
Coming up with cool stuff like that is fun.
I mean, how do you? I'm just curious. I want to take a few steps back. We talked broadly earlier about the process. We talked about dismantling the unit and then scanning it if you're reverse engineering some parts. What software are you using to do all of that stuff? I mean, are you using serious engineering software?
Oh, no.
Hacker software?
Well, I used to be a graphic artist, so I actually draw up all my stuff in 2 dimensions in Adobe Illustrator. Although sometimes I use some Autodesk stuff for the 3D printing and whatnot.
Okay. What kind of Autodesk stuff?
I have the 123D that they came out with. Works pretty good. It's great. You can whip up something in just a few seconds and then be printing it a minute later. It's badass.
Fantastic.
I didn't used to think 3D printing was all that great until I started using it for pinball machines, and I was like, wow, this is perfect for pinball machines. So, yeah. Now I quite like it. Oh, and then a friend of mine, a pinball designer, John Papaduke, I was like, John, you know how to use Inventor. Just buy a 3D printer. Don't even think about it. Just buy it. I guarantee you won't regret your investment.
Oh, wow. So you also take requests for design mods. What are some of the craziest requests you've gotten? And have you completed them? Did they even work?
Well, I've been using this one as an example for years, but it's still pretty ridiculous. I think it was one of the joystick writers wanted me to build. He wanted to play Xbox Uno while using his rowing exercise his machine. So I embedded, a thumb only Xbox controller into his rowing handle, so he could do the rowing exercises on the machine whilst playing Uno. This is back when there was 2 games.
I don't get that at all.
2 games on Xbox Live, Uno and Geometry Wars.
Okay.
Hey, I'm just saying, that was a weird request. Oh God. See, the thing is, 99% of the email that we get is the same requests over and over and over. Yeah. I'm actually thinking about doing a combo system in season 3 just to, I don't know, as an inside joke. So many people are like, hey, combine a Wii with a PlayStation 3 and then blah, blah, blah. And first of all, it's like, why the hell would you do that? But I think we're going to do it just to, put it to bed.
So there's kind of a broader debate in the design world right now that, I don't know, you're probably aware of. Some people, what some people refer to as the cut and paste design economy is kind of...
You mean like Toyota?
It's taken off in a lot of different places. The cut and paste design method, where you take other people's designs, you mod them, you do different stuff to them. It's really popular in the maker world, of course. And some designers get up in arms about this because they feel like this is our blood, sweat, and tears built this console from scratch, and then you just kind of take it and make little tweaks to it. How do you think about that?
Are you talking about in the corporate world or in the hackerspace world?
Oh, yeah. I mean, the copy-paste mentality, I think, is mostly prevalent in the hackerspace world, but I guess corporations are always guilty of...
Well, I mean, look at the video game consoles. Basically, IBM took the core of the cell processor, tripled it, and sold it to Xbox. I mean, that's a perfect example of it. I don't even know how the heck they got away with that. So Sony didn't, want to kill them or anything, but... Well, I know this is going to sound awful. Oh, I don't care. Everything that's open source, it's great because it's like, oh, I can just take this and then change a few lines of code and then it's mine. Of course, that's the rule with any sort of programming. Was it Steve Jobs who said great artists copy? No, good artists copy, great artists steal.
Yeah.
And it's so true. I mean, I usually make absolutely no bones about it if I'm doing it myself. It's like, oh, look, you go on the internet, oh, this is open source. Great, I'll take that, and blah, blah, blah. So, I mean, I think it's good. I think, in a way, I don't know. I guess a lot of these people do this as a hobby. Personally, I wouldn't spend hours and hours and hours and hours working on code and give it away. Because, like the Joker said in Batman, The Dark Knight, he's like, if you're good at something, don't do it for free.
Uh-huh.
But if these people want to do that, that's fine by me. I just, I try to have as much as I have all my old designs on my website. People are free to download those. Usually not the newest ones, but I try to make it available too because, I've done it myself, like, oh, look, here's some code. Oh, I need this driver for a microcontroller and blah, blah, blah. Just, it's like a la carte line. As far as it being a negative thing, I mean, all of engineering is doing the least amount possible to change your product. Using a component until you can't even get it anymore. I mentioned Toyota earlier. They just change the few things in their car every year with the same base frame, but it works great for them.
Right.
It's just not reinventing the wheel unless you have to. Like there's certain parts I use over and over and over, and then if I see their low quantity on a website, I start having the shakes.
On EVD, we're real interested in teaching, especially showing like younger kids how to do stuff and inspiring the younger generation. What are some things that you could pass on along to the listeners or the kids of the listeners about hacking a design or taking on a design project like you do?
Okay, well, the first thing I would say is, work with something simple. I mean, you mentioned old video game consoles. That's a great place to start. You can dig up an old Nintendo or something that's going to be not infinitesimally, but much easier than, even a PlayStation 1, let alone a modern system where, modding them could actually be, I don't want to say dangerous, but, you could burn yourself from all the current. Right. And then when you do mod something, this is the big thing, mod one thing at a time. Because if you take it all apart and then put it back together and then it doesn't work, you don't know where the point of failure was. Yeah. But you change one thing. If that causes it not to work, that one thing I did cause it not to work. If you
isolate the variables.
Mm-hmm, if you change three things and it doesn't work, you have to check all three things. So take it very, very slowly. Some people aren't good at taking things slow, which is a problem that I can't fix. But for those that will listen, yes, take it slow.
That's great advice. And we're going to be able to find you at Maker Faire, New York, right?
Yes, I just booked it today. Are you guys going? So where are you guys at? Texas and
DC.
Washington, D.C.?
Texas and D.C.
Yeah, you guys ever been to the New York one before?
Not yet, no.
Nope.
We're excited, but we're going to be there.
It's pretty cool. It doesn't have quite as much greasy food as the one in California, but it's still cool.
Fantastic.
Yeah, I think it's in Flushing Meadow Park as seen on Iron Man 2.
Oh, man.
Right on. Cool. Well, we are out of time. Thank you, Ben. Having you on this show has been even more fun than that time Adam was eaten by a giant squirrel beast and regurgitated into a giant fur turd you can hire for children's birthday parties. It's true.
Sweet. That could be a movie.
All right. Thanks, man. Thanks so much for your time.
Yeah, definitely. Thanks.
All right. If you would like to send giant furry squirrel beasts to EVDHQ, please regurgitate them and send them to Josh. He will enjoy shooting them into his face.
The squirrels?
The squirrels.
I will. Please address those or any other squirrel hair to Adam or myself. We love your lack of comments. Please continue to not leave them.
No more comments.
Leave
We're
them,
done with
please,
those.
at EngineerVsDesigner.com.
It doesn't hurt our feelings at all. And if you'd like to find out what makes Josh shoot corn kernels out his nose at the computer screen, be sure to like us. +1 us, tweet us, or whatever else, as social media has been correlated food products from your nasal cavity.
This show was edited by Simon Martin.
We'll see you next week. And remember, you can capture fruit bats in your shirt by yourself, but it's more fun when done with friends, running down the street, screaming.
Yeah, good fun with friends.
Good fun. Good times. Good times.
Look out! Engineer vs. Designer is brought to you by Mojo 3D Printer, a world-class professional 3D printer for only $185 a month. To find out how you can give your big idea a little mojo, visit mojo3dprinting.com.
A production of EVD Media.